Rax stared at his data screen, his three eyes blinking rapidly in confusion. The young researcher had been working in the Galactic classification department for only 2 cycles, but he knew something was very wrong with these numbers. He checked them again, then a third time, but the result remained the same. Earth was classified as a Class 14 Deathworld. That was impossible. The classification system only went up to Class 12. Even the dreaded fire plains of Morkan, with their constant lava flows and toxic gas clouds, barely qualified as a Class 11. Yet here was this small blue-green planet, sitting in an unremarkable solar system, somehow breaking the scale entirely. This must be a mistake. Rax muttered to himself, his tail twitching nervously as he scrolled through the data. The more he read, the more confused he became. The planet experienced regular temperature swings of over 100 degrees in its measurement system. Its gravity was crushing by most galactic standards. The atmosphere contained corrosive oxygen in levels that would kill most species. And strangest of all, intelligent life had not only evolved there, but had built sprawling civilizations. The office around him was quiet, most of his colleagues having left for their rest cycle. The soft hum of the environmental systems and the gentle glow of the data screens were his only companions as he dug deeper into the mystery. A movement caught his attention. Director Val, his immediate superior, was passing by his workstation. The older alien's scales had dulled with age, but his eyes were sharp as ever. "Director," Rax called out, perhaps a bit too eagerly. "Could you look at something for me?" Director Val paused, his expression showing mild annoyance. "Make it quick, junior researcher. The day cycle is almost over." "It's about this planet, Earth," Rax said, pulling up the main data screen. "There seems to be an error in its classification. It's listed as Class 14, but that's not possible, right?" The director leaned in, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the information. "Clearly a clerical error," he said dismissively. "Probably meant to be Class 4. Make the correction and finish your shift." But Rax wasn't satisfied. "Sir, with respect, I've checked the supporting data. The conditions on this world, they're extraordinary. The inhabitants regularly survive situations that would be fatal on even Class 10 worlds." "Nonsense." Director Val straightened up, his voice carrying a note of finality. "No intelligent species could evolve in such conditions. Fix the classification and move on to your next assignment." After the director left, Rax sat back in his hover chair, his mind racing. Something about this didn't add up. He pulled up more files, digging into old survey reports and preliminary scans. Each new piece of information only made Earth seem more impossible. The planet had massive bodies of dihydrogen monoxide covering most of its surface, a substance so dangerous it was banned on most civilized worlds. Its crust was constantly shifting, causing devastating earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Massive storms regularly ravaged its surface, and the local star bombarded it with harmful radiation. Yet the inhabitants, humans, they called themselves, not only survived but seemed to barely notice these dangers. There were reports of them voluntarily swimming in the dihydrogen monoxide. They built cities right on top of geological fault lines. They even had recreational activities that involved jumping out of flying vehicles for fun. Rax made a decision. Instead of correcting the error, he flagged the file for further investigation. He knew it might get him in trouble with Director Val, but his scientific curiosity wouldn't let him ignore this. If Earth really was a Class 14 Deathworld, it would change everything they thought they knew about planetary classification and species development. As he prepared to end his shift, Rax copied the key files to his personal data device. He would need more evidence to prove his theory, but he was determined to uncover the truth about this remarkable world and its seemingly impossible inhabitants. The mystery of Earth and its extraordinary classification would not let him rest. Little did Rax know, His discovery would soon shake the foundations of galactic society and change how every species viewed the hardy, resilient beings known as humans. James Miller pulled his thick coat tighter around himself as he checked the weather instruments outside the research station. The wind howled across the Arctic tundra, and the temperature display showed -40 degrees. Just another typical day at the remote climate monitoring post. He had chosen this isolated assignment because it offered the best data on extreme weather patterns. 3 years of studying the Arctic's harshest conditions had given him insights that couldn't be gained anywhere else. What he hadn't expected was that today would bring him insights about something far beyond Earth's weather. The first sign that something was different came when his instruments started giving weird readings. The electromagnetic sensors were going crazy, and there was an odd shimmer in the air about 50 feet from the station. James grabbed his tablet and started recording data, his scientific curiosity overriding any sense of caution. That's when the alien probe appeared. It simply blinked into existence, a sleek, silver sphere about the size of a basketball, hovering silently in the Arctic air. James stood perfectly still, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air, as he watched it with fascination. "Incredible," he whispered, already taking notes on his tablet. The sphere showed no signs of being affected by the brutal wind or the extreme cold. It just floated there, seemingly studying him as much as he was studying it. Inside the probe, Rax watched the human's reaction with growing amazement. He had expected the Deathworlder to either run in terror or attack the probe. Instead, this human was taking notes. Actually taking scientific observations of a potential threat, standing calmly in conditions that would kill most galactic species in minutes. "Hello," James said to the probe, his voice clear and steady. "I'm Dr. James Miller, Earth climatologist. I assume you can understand me." Rax nearly fell out of his control chair. Not only was the human attempting peaceful communication, but he was a fellow scientist. The young alien researcher quickly activated the probe's translation matrix. "Greetings, Dr. Miller," the probe responded in a synthetic voice. "I am Junior Researcher Rax of the Galactic Classification Department. You seem surprisingly calm about this situation." James smiled. "Well, either I'm hallucinating from too many nights alone in the Arctic, or I'm experiencing humanity's first confirmed alien contact. Either way, panicking won't help gather good data." Rax couldn't believe what he was hearing. This human was treating first contact with an unknown alien species as a chance to collect data. Even more incredibly, he was doing it while standing in temperatures that would flash freeze most galactic citizens. "Dr. Miller," Rax said through the probe, "might I ask why you're working in these extreme conditions? Surely there are more hospitable places to conduct research." "Oh, this." James gestured at the harsh landscape around him. "This is where the most interesting data is. Besides, it's not that bad once you get used to it. Would you like to see my weather station? The readings today are fascinating, especially with your probe's arrival affecting the instruments." Rax watched in stunned silence as the human casually walked back toward his research station, apparently expecting the probe to follow. Here was living proof of everything the classification data had suggested. Humans didn't just survive in Deathworld conditions, they actively sought them out in the pursuit of knowledge. As James showed the probe around his station, explaining his research with genuine enthusiasm, Rax knew he had found something unprecedented in galactic history. This wasn't just a species that had evolved on a Deathworld. This was a species that had turned their harsh environment into an advantage, using it to advance their understanding of the universe. The mystery of Earth's Class 14 classification was starting to make more sense, and Rax had a feeling his discovery was going to be even more important than he had initially thought. Back in his research lab, Rax couldn't stop watching the recordings from his probe's visit to Earth. He had spent 3 days analyzing the data, and each review revealed something more incredible about humans and their world. On one screen, he watched James casually drink a hot beverage called coffee, a substance that contained enough stimulants to send most alien species into cardiac arrest. On another screen, weather data showed how the research station had endured wind speeds that could strip the outer shells from standard galactic buildings. "Computer," Rex said, his voice excited, "display combined survival threats for the Arctic Research Station location." The list that appeared made his three eyes widen. Temperatures capable of freezing flesh solid. Winds exceeding safe structural limits. Atmospheric pressure fluctuations beyond standard tolerance. High oxygen content in breathable air. Crushing gravity at 9.8 meters per second squared. Extreme isolation from support systems. Regular exposure to solar radiation. Any one of these conditions would classify a planet as dangerous. All of them together should make survival impossible. Yet humans not only survived, they built research stations in such places for fun. The door chimed, interrupting his thoughts. "Enter," Rax called out, quickly organizing his displays. Director Val walked in, looking stern. "Junior researcher, you've been accessing restricted Earth files for 3 days straight. This obsession with a clerical error must stop." Rax stood up straight. "Sir, it's not an error. I've made contact with a human scientist. Let me show you the recordings." Before Director Val could object, Rax played the footage of James giving a tour of his station. The human was explaining their weather monitoring systems while eating something called a protein bar, which analysis showed contained enough nutrients to feed a standard alien for 3 days. "Watch this part," Rax said eagerly. He switched to footage of James going outside to check some equipment. The human walks through lethal cold without environmental protection suits, just simple insulated clothing. And here, he switched to another clip. They built this station to withstand conditions that would tear apart our strongest materials. Director Val's expression changed from skepticism to disbelief as he watched. "This can't be right. The energy required to survive in such conditions." "That's just it, sir." Rax pulled up more data. "Humans have incredibly efficient metabolisms. They can eat almost anything. Even substances that would be toxic to most species. They can survive extreme temperature changes, heal from serious injuries, and their bodies can adapt to different gravity conditions." The director watched in silence as Rax showed more evidence. Humans living in desert regions hot enough to cook most species alive. Cities built on active fault lines. Settlements in areas with regular natural disasters. "And here's the most amazing part," Rax said, pulling up his latest analysis. "Most species evolved to handle 1 or 2 extreme conditions. Humans evolved to handle all of them. Their bodies can adapt to almost any environment on their planet. They even have special cells that fight off microscopic invaders. They call it an immune system." Director Val sank into a chair, his scales pale with shock. This changes everything we thought we knew about species development." "Exactly." Rax could barely contain his excitement. Earth isn't just a death world. It's an everything world. The humans had to evolve to survive every type of threat at once. That's why our classification system couldn't handle it properly. The director looked at the data again, then at Rax. "This needs to go to the Galactic Council immediately. If what you've discovered is true, we need to completely rethink our understanding of survival capabilities and what it means to be an advanced species." Rax nodded, already preparing his presentation. The truth about Earth and its remarkable inhabitants was about to shake the foundations of galactic society. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so loud. Representatives from over 300 species filled the massive room, their voices rising in a chaos of different languages as Rax's presentation concluded. The young researcher stood at the center platform, surrounded by floating screens showing Earth's data. "Impossible," shouted the representative from Nexus Prime, their crystalline form flickering with agitation. "No species could evolve under such conditions." "The evidence is clear," Rax replied, his voice steadied despite his nervousness. He pointed to a screen showing humans building skyscrapers. "They don't just survive. They thrive. Look at their cities. They build massive structures in earthquake zones, hurricane regions, and desert wastelands. The Aquarian delegate, floating in their water sphere, moved forward. What about their space program? Surely such a high-gravity species couldn't achieve spaceflight. Rax changed the display to show human space achievements. They reached their moon just 66 years after inventing powered flight. They did it with technology we would consider primitive, using explosives to push metal containers through space. He paused as gasps filled the chamber. And their astronauts actually enjoyed it. This is madness. The Verox representative slammed their appendage on their desk. A species that powerful is a threat to galactic peace. They must be contained. Director Val stepped forward to stand beside Rax. With respect, containment would be impossible. The humans have already spotted most of our observation probes. They've turned it into a game they call UFO hunting. More screens activated, showing humans in different environments. A deep-sea research team working under crushing pressures. Mountain climbers scaling peaks in air too thin for most species to survive. Scientists working inside volcano calderas. The humans have a saying, Rax continued, where there's a will, there's a way. They see obstacles as challenges to overcome, not barriers to avoid. The council leader, an ancient being of pure energy contained in a metallic shell, moved to the center of the chamber. Their voice resonated through the room, cutting through the noise. What are you suggesting, junior researcher? That we simply accept a Class 14 species into the galactic community. Rax took a deep breath. I'm suggesting we learn from them. Humans have developed unique solutions to survival problems that have plagued our species for millennia. They call it thinking outside the box, finding unexpected answers to difficult problems. The chambers erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Representatives began discussing potential applications of human survival techniques. The Aquarians were particularly interested in human deep-sea exploration methods. The desert clans wanted to learn about human water conservation. Order. The council leader called out. This is unprecedented. Never in galactic history have we encountered a species that evolved under such extreme conditions. The classification system itself must be revised. There's more, Rax said, bringing up new data. Humans don't just adapt to their environment. They adapt their environment to themselves. They've created artificial environments in space, underwater, and even in their planet's harshest deserts. They call them habitats. The chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. A species that could survive anywhere and create livable environments from hostile conditions would change everything. We must vote. The council leader announced. Do we extend an invitation to Earth to join the galactic community, or do we attempt containment? As the voting began, Rax noticed something interesting. The species most similar to humans, those from Class 8 and above worlds, were voting overwhelmingly for contact. They understood something that the others didn't yet. Earth's harsh conditions hadn't created monsters. They had created innovators, problem solvers, and potential teachers for the entire galaxy. The future of galactic society hung in the balance, and it all depended on how they chose to view these remarkable Deathworlders called humans. Dr. Kate Brown stood before the Galactic Council's Cultural Exchange Committee, trying not to smile at their shocked expressions. She had just shown them videos of human children playing in snow, and the aliens looked horrified. You let your young ones play in frozen water? Asked one of the committee members, their tentacles curling in distress, without protective shields. Of course, Kate replied, clicking to the next slide. It's called having fun. Here's something even better. We call this skiing. The video showed people racing down steep mountain slopes at high speeds. The committee members watched in stunned silence as humans flew down the mountainside on thin strips of material, deliberately putting themselves in danger for entertainment. One of the alien observers had to leave the room. Perhaps we should move on to something less extreme, Kate suggested, changing the topic. Let's talk about human cities. The next series of images showed various human settlements, an underground city in Australia where people lived in converted mines to escape the heat. A floating city off the coast of Japan that rose and fell with the tides. A research station buried deep in the Antarctic ice. Humans, Kate explained, don't see harsh conditions as barriers. We see them as puzzles to solve. Too hot. We go underground. Too cold. We build better insulation. Too wet. We make floating homes. A tall, silver-skinned alien raised their hand. But why live in such places at all? Why not simply stay in comfortable regions? Kate thought for a moment. Because they're there, she said finally. There's this human named George Mallory. When asked why he wanted to climb Mount Everest, one of our highest and most dangerous mountains, he said, because it's there. That's just how humans think. She brought up new images. Deep-sea researchers living under crushing pressures, volcano scientists collecting samples of molten rock, doctors working in disease zones, and astronauts floating in the void of space. Everything you see here, she continued, started because someone said, I wonder what's out there. Or, I wonder if we could. Or even just, wouldn't it be cool if? The committee members were taking rapid notes. One of them spoke up. But surely you have limits. Boundaries you won't cross. Kate laughed. We have a saying. Hold my beer. It means, watch this. I'm about to do something amazing or stupid, possibly both. She showed them clips of human achievements throughout history. The first flight, the moon landing, deep-sea exploration, mountain climbing, desert crossing. With each example, she explained how humans had faced seemingly impossible challenges and found ways to overcome them. But here's what you really need to understand, Kate said, her voice growing serious. We don't do these things because we're fearless or invincible. We do them because we're curious, because we want to learn, because we want to help others, and sometimes just because we want to know if we can. The final slide showed a collection of human faces, people of all ages, from all parts of Earth, doing various activities in different environments. Yes, Earth is what you call a Class 14 Deathworld, Kate concluded. But that's not what made humans special. What made us special is that we never let that stop us. We looked at freezing cold and said, let's go skiing. We looked at deep oceans and said, let's see what's down there. We looked at space and said, let's go visit. As the committee discussed among themselves, Kate noticed something interesting. They were no longer looking at humans with fear. Instead, she saw curiosity in their eyes, and maybe even a bit of admiration. Perhaps that was humanity's greatest achievement, not just surviving on a death world, but showing others that the impossible was often just the undiscovered possible. The emergency alert blared through the Galactic Council's chambers, interrupting a routine meeting. Red lights flashed as data streamed across the main screens. The mining colony on Stormhaven was in terrible danger. Class 10 storm system approaching the main colony, announced the emergency AI. Predicted wind speeds exceed 500 kilometers per hour. Toxic atmosphere mix. Electromagnetic interference preventing teleport evacuation. The council members watched in horror as the massive storm approached the colony of 10,000 miners. Their ships couldn't get close enough for evacuation. The storm's power would tear them apart. How long until impact? The council leader demanded. 3 hours, replied the AI. Standard evacuation impossible. Survival probability 0%. That's when Rax burst into the chamber, with Dr. Kate Brown right behind him. We can help, he shouted. The humans have experience with this kind of situation. The council leader turned to Kate. What can humans possibly do against a Class 10 storm? Even our best ships can't approach it. Kate was already on her communication device. This is Dr. Brown initiating Emergency Protocol Delta. I need the Hurricane Hunters and the Extreme Rescue Team. Yes, full authorization. Launch immediately. The council members looked confused. Hurricane Hunters? One asked. On Earth, Kate explained quickly, We have teams that fly specially designed aircraft into powerful storms to gather data and perform rescues. They're already training their ships to handle Stormhaven's conditions. Within an hour, 6 modified human rescue ships appeared near Stormhaven. They were ugly by alien standards, built for function rather than beauty, with reinforced hulls and powerful engines. The Council watched in disbelief as the human ships flew straight into the storm. The crews had studied Stormhaven's atmosphere and adapted their vessels accordingly. Where elegant alien ships would have been torn apart, the sturdy human craft pushed through. "This is Captain Mike Roberts of the Hurricane Hunters," a voice crackled over the comm. "We're approaching the colony. These winds are rough, but we've seen worse during Earth's hurricane season. Beginning evacuation procedures." The rescue operation was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. The human ships took turns flying into the heart of the storm, using their Earth-honed skills to battle the savage winds. Their pilots treated the deadly storm like a puzzle to be solved, rather than an impossible barrier. "How are they doing this?" whispered one Council member, watching as the humans efficiently evacuated group after group of miners. Rax, who had been studying the human ship's data, explained. "They're using the storm's own patterns against it. See how they ride the wind currents. They learned these techniques from flying into Earth's hurricanes. What we see as unsurvivable chaos, they see as a challenging but manageable weather system." The evacuation continued for 2 hours. The human crews worked tirelessly, their ships growing more battered but never stopping. They cracked jokes over the comm system, treating the lethal storm as if it were just another day at work. "Final group secured," Captain Roberts reported. "All colonists accounted for. Pulling out now. Though I gotta say, this storm wasn't as bad as Hurricane Patricia back in 15. As the rescue ships departed, carrying all 10,000 colonists to safety, the Council chamber erupted in applause. The humans had done the impossible, turning a certain tragedy into a successful rescue mission. Kate smiled at the Council leader. "This is why Earth is a Class 14 world," she said softly. "Not because it's so dangerous, but because it taught us to overcome any challenge. When others see impossible conditions, we see Tuesday." The Council leader nodded slowly. "Perhaps," they said, "we have been looking at this all wrong. Your Class 14 world didn't just create survivors, it created rescuers." 1 year after the Stormhaven rescue, the Great Chamber of the Galactic Council looked very different. Where once there had been barriers between species requiring different environmental conditions, now there were human-designed adaptive environments that allowed all representatives to mix freely. Rax stood at the podium, now wearing the silver bands of a senior researcher, presenting the final draft of the new Galactic classification system. Behind him, both Dr. Kate Brown and James Miller sat as honored guests, representing Earth. The old system, Rax explained, was based on the idea that harsh conditions prevent advancement. Earth proved this wrong. Tonight, we officially implement the new classification system, which measures not just environmental challenges, but a species' adaptability to them. The main screen displayed the new categories. Stable worlds, former Class 1 to 3. Challenge worlds, former Class 4 to 7. Survival worlds, former Class 8 to 12. And the new category, adaptation worlds. Earth remains our only Class 14 world. Rax continued, but not because it's dangerous. It holds this rank because it produced a species that can survive anywhere and help others do the same. He gestured to a side screen showing various images. Human survival experts teaching desert clan members how to conserve water, Earth engineers helping design new storm-resistant ships, and human medical researchers working with alien doctors to improve emergency treatments. In just 1 year, Kate added, standing up to join Rax, we've established 40 joint training programs. Humans are teaching other species our survival techniques, while we learn amazing new technologies from our galactic neighbors. James Miller, still wearing his Arctic Research Station jacket despite the controlled chamber temperature, stepped up next. "Last month, Our joint human-alien team successfully established the first research station on the fire plains of Morkan. We're already gathering data that could help predict and prevent volcanic disasters across the galaxy. The council leader raised their energy form in the traditional gesture of approval. When we first discovered Earth's true nature, many feared it would destabilize the galactic community. Instead, it has made us stronger. Rax clicked to the next slide, showing the latest statistics. Colony survival rates up 300%. Successful settlements on previously uninhabitable worlds. New emergency response protocols based on human experience. Improved environmental adaptation techniques. Decreased death rates in extreme conditions. But perhaps the most important change, Rax said, is in how we think. Humans taught us to see challenges as opportunities. Their favorite saying is now posted in every galactic research center. Impossible just means nobody's done it yet. The chamber filled with approving sounds from various species. Even the energy beings pulsed with positive frequencies. We're establishing the first galactic survival school, Kate announced. A place where all species can learn from each other's experiences. Humans will teach what we learned from Earth's challenges, while other species share their own unique survival skills. James nodded, adding, "After all, if we can teach people to live in the Arctic for fun, we can teach anyone to survive anywhere." The council leader moved to the center of the chamber, their energy form glowing brightly. 1 year ago, we discovered that we had grossly misunderstood Earth and its people. We thought a Class 14 world would produce monsters. Instead, it produced teachers, rescuers, and friends. They turned to face the assembled representatives. Let the record show that Earth's classification as a Class 14 world stands, not as a warning, but as an inspiration. The humans have shown us that the true measure of advancement isn't in avoiding challenges, but in learning to overcome them together. As the chamber erupted in approval, Rax looked at his human friends and smiled. The mystery he'd discovered in his simple data entry had changed the galaxy forever. Earth wasn't just a death world anymore. It was a beacon of hope, showing that even the harshest conditions could produce the greatest gifts. The Class 14 world had taught the galaxy its most important lesson. There are no limits to what life can achieve when it refuses to accept them.